Mr. Ayers, welcome to Cover Story. In fact, this is a special edition of Cover Story as we take a look at the year that was. So this will be like your verbal column on the year, on the happenings of the year. And to begin with, unfortunately, we'll have to take into account the recent assembly rout of the Congress. What are the lessons that the party has really learned?
I think one of the lessons is to have a memory that is longer than 1 week. Just go back 6 months. Who won in Karnataka? Who won in Uttarakhand? Who won in Himachal Pradesh? And all this after the problem started for the party. So therefore, on the basis of a set of elections which were primed to go against the Congress, we've lost.
But whoever I was speaking to, they were saying 3-1. Delhi was the big shock, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was foolish if anybody thought that, so I didn't. I felt that ever since the mishaps over the Commonwealth Games, I'm not talking of the corruption, that was a Kalmadi affair. I'm talking about the mishaps, the mishandling. There was a stain that spread over the last 3 or 4 years, bringing everything into question. But any objective look at Sheila Dikshit's record will show that she has been an utterly outstanding Chief Minister of Delhi, which is why she got elected thrice. And in all fairness, she should have got elected the 4th time, but democracy is not about fairness. Democracy is about the people's will. And the people have decided that they'd like to see a change. Well, we gave them a change in 98, they're giving us a change in 2013, that's all.
But is it that's all? Because this whole rise of the Aam Aadmi Party, aren't you as a politician threatened by this?
No, I'm delighted by it.
Why is that?
Because if a party from nowhere can come up so well in 12 or 13 months, then it indicates that our democracy is not at all of the kind that these very same people were describing earlier. They said all elections are muscle power, money power, all politicians are cheats, crooks, all laws are made at the behest of private interests. Now, if they won in our democracy, it means that our democracy is actually an open door and that anybody can come in. And now that they've come in, I would have expected them to seize the opportunity to rule. The BJP, for reasons of its own, has declined the Lieutenant Governor's invitation, or says they will decline it if they receive it. And the AAP, which is only a few seats behind the BJP, gets this golden opportunity to put into practice all that they're claiming, and they get frightened. Are they rabbits?
Shouldn't you also be frightened that what they want is an outright majority? They are showing a way to politicians that do not go in for horse trading, don't try and rule when you don't have the mandate, wait for a majority.
But they've, in a democracy, you have to form minority governments from time to time. Narasimha Rao ran a minority government for 5 years.
But which is remembered for the JMM horse trading, among other things.
There may have been horse trading, let them remain away from horse trading. But let them run a minority government as long as it can run. They have made 2 promises, free water. They don't need a majority in the House to be able to give free water, let them give it. They also said they'll cut down all electricity rates. They don't need a majority in the House to cut down electricity rates. They are going to regularize slums. They can do that without a majority in the House. There are so many things in their program. I need a majority in the House to cut down electricity rates. They are going to regularize slums. They can do that without a majority in the House. There are so many things in their program, and they don't have, unlike poor parties like us that have one manifesto, they've got, I think, 2,567 manifestos. Why can't they get on with implementing those? It's utterly irresponsible that people who run an agitation, on the day they win an unexpected victory, they then win an unexpected run for it in the opposite direction.
Which brings me to the other highlight of this year, the rise of Narendra Modi. You know, a lot of people are saying, congressmen privately, that maybe this Kejriwal is better placed to take on Modi than your Rahul Gandhi.
I am delighted that the Aam Aadmi Party succeeded in stopping the Modi wave at the Delhi Darwaza. Excellent thing. But there are already AAPs present in almost all the states of India. There is the ADMK and the DMK in Tamil Nadu. There is the Telugu Desam and the YSR Congress in Andhra. There is the TRS in Telangana. There is Naveen Patnaik's party in Odisha. There's Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal. There are numerous parties in the northeast of India. There's Nitish Kumar in Bihar. There's also Lalu in Bihar.
Do you
There's
think the
also
regional factors?
all these are going to make this not a Congress versus BJP fight as it has been in Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. The BJP is a party of the of a section of Western India with a wedge into Central India. That's all. They are not a national party. I don't think the story of 2013 is the rise of Modi. It is the unbelievable spectacle of an illiterate who knows no history, no economics, no law, no constitution, being chosen by a major party as its leader. That is the story.
But it's also the story of Modi is so insignificant as you're making him out to be. Why is Rahul Gandhi so scared to take him on? Let it be a Rahul versus Modi battle.
Let's first remain with Narendra Modi for a moment. Okay. Wow, he is the darling. He's as much the darling of the capitalist class as Indira Gandhi used to be the darling of the poor. It is they. He is a Punjipatiyon ka Katputli. He's a puppet of Dalal Street. And because he has so manipulated economic policy in Gujarat as to endow massive favors on Tata, on what's the chap, Adani, on L&T. Look at the L&T story. In the same Hazira special industrial zone, he gives land at 1 rupee a square foot to L&T, and in the same zone, that land is sold at 700 rupees a square foot to a small industrialist. So no wonder they love him, because he's going to rob Peter to pay Paul. Peter being the poor and Paul being the rich. And that is why, and then because all these capitalist houses have a huge share in our media, there is a build-up which starts in Dalal Street. And I don't think this country should be sold to Dalal Street. Now we come to Rahul Gandhi. Rahul Gandhi has clearly laid out his priorities in his vice presidential address in Jaipur and by his actions earlier.
His lack of actions. Actions is a strange word to describe Rahul.
What he has done to reorganize and retool the Youth Congress and the Student Congress is a revolution in Congress history. Now that he's been given responsibility for the parent party, here is a golden opportunity, if we are not distracted by governance, to bring actually into operation 3 major sets of recommendations, 2 of which have already been accepted by the CWC. From Umashankar Dikshit, the democratization of the party. From A.K. Antony's committee, declaring our Lok Sabha candidates 6 months in advance and our assembly candidates 3 months in advance.
But all this happened 2 decades ago. Nothing has been implemented.
By the time we start implementing them, the people of India kick out these jokers who've taken our place and we have to go back to governing. And when we go back to governing, don't forget what Rajiv Gandhi said. Why did this whole exercise begin?
If anyone forgets, there is Mani Shankar Iyer to remind us of Rajiv Gandhi's words.
Forgive me, but I want to authentically remind you of what Rajiv Gandhi said at the Congress centenary. He says, we've looked at others.
Mani, you don't know this by heart? I thought you would have.
Now let us look at, I do, but I don't want to get it wrong. We've looked at others, now let us look at ourselves. What has become of our great organization? Instead of a party that fired the imagination of the masses throughout the length and breadth of India, we've shrunk, losing touch with the toiling millions. He went on to say, millions of ordinary Congress workers are full of enthusiasm, but they are handicapped, for on their backs ride the brokers of power and influence, who dispense patronage to convert a mass movement into a feudal oligarchy. You can see I'm not reading. They are self-perpetuating cliques who thrive by enmeshing the living body of the Congress in their net of avarice. It is this that had to be changed. For that, he set up the Umashankar Dikshit report. He started trying to implement it in April 1990. In July 1990, he got the approval of the plenary Congress. And then the VP Singh government started collapsing 2 weeks later. Equally, Sonia Gandhi was getting to do something about the A.K. Antony report when Vajpayee called elections early and we won. So for 10 years, when we are in victory, these recommendations are put in the back burner because the party says, "Arey, we've just won with the old machine. Why do you want to tinker with it?" But I believe that Rahul Gandhi is right in thinking that the Congress machine made for the 20th century made us the natural party of governance in the 20th century. But the 21st century is fundamentally different because of what his father did, which was Panchayati Raj. Today we have 32 lakh elected representatives at the grassroots. Of these, maybe 10 lakh are Congress persons. If we just make them the basis of our party, instead of bogus lists of primary members, as we've been doing for the last 20 or 30 years or more, have these genuinely elected people as our grassroots workers, and then give them an effective voice by electing every single echelon of the party, from the block and the town congress president onwards, then we will be able to get a party where the workers have a sense of ownership of the party, where there's a responsiveness to their requirements from those whom they've elected, and then we'll be able to make this, in the 21st century, the natural party of governance as we did in the 20th. But if you use a 20th century Ford T to move on an express highway in the 21st century, we're not going to succeed.
But Rahul Gandhi also said that I'm going to learn from the Aam Aadmi Party. You've just derided that Aam Aadmi Party.
Yeah, I've derided what they've done after their miraculous performance. But their miraculous performance does hold a number of lessons, because many of the things they've said and done are implementing what Rajiv Gandhi said in 1985. That's why I bored you by reading it out. Now, I think it's amazing that the leader of a 122-year-old party sees virtue in a 12-month-old party. This is humility, in contrast to the tremendous arrogance I'm seeing from virtually every AAP person who comes on television.
Well, winning gives you that arrogance.
Well, I mean, isn't it sad that
Congress has been accused of it also.
But that's what brought us to this state. I'm glad that Rahul Gandhi has displayed the humility which is becoming of the leader of a great national party. We are always ready to learn. After all, it was Gandhiji who said, "I don't want the windows and doors of my house to be stuffed. I want them to be open so that the winds of the world blow around me. But I refuse to be blown off my feet." So the Congress has always been open to others.
But here you're quoting the scriptures, if I may say. Rahul Gandhi's windows and doors are never open. His house is barricaded. When did you last meet him? When did he meet the media? If he's so open.
I know the media thinks that they are the world. I don't know when he last met the media. You ask Ganesh Singh that. I don't know the answer to it. It's true that I barely meet him, but that's because I don't think he's persuaded that I'm particularly relevant to the 21st century. But it doesn't mean that he's isolated from everyone.
Who is he meeting? He's meeting.
What I've seen of him in the last year, he has suddenly breathed life into 24 Akbar Road. It used to be the biggest...
No, he shut 24 Akbar Road and shifted the whole action to Rakabganj Road and his own Tughlaq Road. People in Akbar Road are now irrelevant. Instead of a Janardhan Dwivedi, you have a Ajay Makhan, you have Dipinder Hooda, Sandeep Dikshit, Jairam Ramesh, Mohan Prakash. That is the whole problem, that outsiders have taken over the party who have no stake in the Congress.
Mentioning Jairam Ramesh just to provoke me. I refuse to be provoked.
But I saw that smile. That mischievous hot voice.
If you go into 24 Akbar Road, maybe you're barred from going in there because people have serious work to do and not this entertainment to indulge in. So we will, there I find that his hands-on approach to the general secretaries I have not seen for a very long time. They are in regular touch with him. And that's the echelon at which he needs to operate. That party presidents have no difficulty in meeting him. Curiously,
I'd like to know the name.
Curiously, an ex-MLA in my constituency, Rajkumar, has seen Rahul Gandhi more often than I have because he is more relevant to Rahul's purposes. One day, someday, before I lower myself into the grave, I trust he'll find something worthy of checking out in me. But look at the history of the Congress. When Nehru came in, the Gandhians went out. When Indira came in, the syndicate went out. When Rajiv came in, I saw many Indirites going out. So these generational changes are bound to take place. And so long as I recognize that I am at least a 20th century man, although sometimes I behave like a 19th century one, I am certainly not a child of the 21st century. I am a midnight's child. I'm 72 years old. Rahul is 31 years younger than me. And I once calculated, who was born 31 years before me? It took me to 1911. And yes, I did know people who were born in 1911, but I called them all uncle, and I'd never dream of teaming up with them. So Rahul, I cannot expect to team up with me except episodically. Maybe on something particular, he would want to be in touch with me. But I don't expect to be a mainstream player.
But at least have people who are involved in the party to advise you and guide you. He's taking in people who are all, seen as outsiders.
No, these outsiders
these are all ignorant party hoppers.
Backroom boys.
That's a very polite word. You're really being polite.
And you need backroom boys. You definitely need them.
They're boys.
I can't run my office without my PA. So therefore, you need backroom boys. And
but your PA is not going to be deciding your policy and what statement. The column was written by you, not your PA. At the end of the day, you need...
I'm sure a lot of the decisions that are taken by him, by Rahul, are on the same basis. He takes them, but he may require inputs from others. Now, very often, I don't have to particularly prepare for this program. But when somebody said that they wanted me to debate on the communal violence bill, I did ask my staff to pull out all that they could on the communal violence bill from the internet. They did it because I don't know how to operate the internet.
That's it. And then you used your experience to put things in perspective.
Sure, and that's what Rahul does.
He needs people. He doesn't have that experience. He's young, fine.
Pass it on to him that I think that Baucus is willing if you want to take me.
But tell me something, Baucus is willing, but why is Rahul still being seen as an unwilling leader? That is the whole problem with this whole...
I find that curious. He is obviously not going to be running for chief ministership. Right. In fact, I wish he had run for the chief ministership of UP. Then maybe our result there would have been much better. We don't need, as the last 10 years have demonstrated, for a member of the Gandhi family to be prime minister. If that is required by the circumstances, they are available. If it is not necessary and they don't wish to, for whatever reason, personal or political or organizational, that option is always open. And therefore, I don't think he should be running around like this guy. What's his name? You took his name. I don't want to take it. Saying, I'm the prime minister, I'm the prime minister. Where has he won the election? Who's going to make him prime minister? I really think it'll be a farce for a man who knows so little to become the prime minister, so obviously the puppet of somebody else to become the prime minister. And if, God forbid, he actually does, it'll be a matter of minutes before he stands completely exposed.
But he still has the people's mandate. Look at these 4 states. They sent 72 seats to Lok Sabha. Now,
please tell me how many of these seats were already with the BJP? Except
about 30, I think. Congress had a lot.
This is his heartland. Where else is he going to be?
But where is Congress going to be a party of the Northeast? Where are you? I mean, you're just there apart from Karnataka and Maharashtra, which are the big states. Andhra, you've already divided. So even if you'll just get Telangana. Where is the Congress?
So therefore, if we don't win, and if the BJP doesn't win, then whom do we have winning? About 6 different state leaders, each of whom has about 30 seats. It's going to be a really amusing circus to sit on the sidelines and watch them attempt to form a government. And when they do, how long will it last? I don't know who's going to be leaders, each of whom has about 30 seats. It's going to be a really amusing circus to sit on the sidelines and watch them attempt to form a government. And when they do, how long will it last? I don't know who's going to win the 2014 election, but this I guarantee you, the next Lok Sabha is going to be formed in 2015 or 2016. This government of disparates is not going to last. And the people of India, after always repeatedly giving disparates an opportunity, they then vote for stability. And then they know that dand diya hai Congress party ko aur ab unko layenge, because they are the only party who can run a government. Now our problem has been that we've for the first time run a coalition government. And there are, I think, many lessons to learn from that as to whether it's better to sit it out rather than form a coalition of incompatibles, or whether there should be rules of the game clearly established before you run a coalition government. These are all things which, what's the point of my talking about it? They'll never bring me into that lot. But the core groups and things should be thinking about this.
What about Sharad Pawar's recent comment that we need decisive leadership? I mean, we all say Modi doesn't have allies, but Congress is, Rahul Gandhi himself is not really inspiring allies.
Sharad Pawar regarded Indira Gandhi as a decisive leader, which is why he revolted against her. And now I think he regards himself as a decisive leader. So he is absolutely right in the abstract. Of course we need decisive leadership. But decisive leadership cannot be leadership that is so decisive that it brings the house of cards down. We were faced with a very difficult situation, and we've navigated the straits between Scylla and Charybdis without hitting against the rocks. We've done 10 years. Give us the credit for that.
We'll give you the credit for the 10 years, but the whole idea is the future, not looking back. Will you get 15 years?
You asked me to look back over this year, and I thought you got me fixed because you were going to talk about last week, not the whole of the year. I've taken you back through the year.
You've taken me back 10 years. I just wanted 1 year from you, Mani, not a decade.
We have been a very successful government. But every government in a democracy usually doesn't have more than 2 terms. I was talking to the Reuters correspondent, and I said, can you name me a government that lasted 3 terms in Britain? And he said, yes, Margaret Thatcher's. I said, for that she had to invade the Falkland Islands, 8,000 miles away. So you do something unbelievably extraordinary, then maybe you can get 3 terms. But in the normal course, 2 terms is what you get. A 3rd term you get as a bonus. And to get a 4th term, you have to be Allah Mian himself.
But do you think that should the Congress go in for these elections with Rahul as a Prime Minister?
No, not necessarily
Why?
at all. We should go in for these elections with Rahul Gandhi as Vice President and Sonia Gandhi as President. We will determine who the Prime Minister will be at an appropriate time. There's no point in appointing a Prime Minister if we're not going to win. Let's win and then do it. We have a leadership that comprises faces that are very well known, extremely well known. There's stability in our leadership. It's not there. You saw the cat and mouse fight, the cat and dog fight that took place in the BJP. Till today, L.K. Advani is walking around as if his spirit has been smashed. I think the lady who lives opposite me is also a contender. She's waiting for Modi to fall so that she can come up on top. We don't have any of these problems.
For those who don't know Lutyens Delhi.
They don't have any of these problems. We have a leadership that understands its role relative to each other. We have decided a long time ago that our biggest electoral asset and organizational asset is Sonia Gandhi. It is she in whose name we are able to ask for votes. It is she who binds this very disparate Congress party together. And in her son, there is a consensus leader, and we go forward.
When we were leaving on one leader, what about Manmohan Singh in this whole hierarchy?
Well, Dr. Manmohan Singh was quite clearly somebody who was nominated to the post of Prime Minister. And between the two of them, as far as I can make out, there was a pretty good relationship. Things worked well, which is how we've run the party and the government for 10 years. Now, has the time for change come or not? It is Sonia Gandhi who has said that at the appropriate time, and she didn't say before the election or after the election, she said at the appropriate time we'll take a decision.
But
it's not a major issue for us.
But it is a major issue because we want to know, it's become a presidential form of election. We want to know, there is Modi and then there is a question mark.
In Mailadurai, you think Modi exists? In this country...
He's learning the language. He learned one sentence of Tamil when he went last time.
Thank you. I also started with 5 sentences, but I've been there for 24 years. And let him come back after 24 years, and then we listen to him. This is all rubbish. This is gimmicks. The man is a great one gimmicks. If everyone else has a long sleeve kurta, he'll cut it. If everyone else wears a white kurta, he'll put on a color. He keeps tying his... He's fit for a catwalk. He's not fit for the Prime Minister's home.
But speaking of long sleeve kurtas, what about Rahul Gandhi who keeps pulling up his sleeves?
Well, he keeps pulling up his sleeves. Like his father used to say, Hum dekhenge. These are little eccentricities.
So with
which
Rahul,
do
it's
not-
eccentricities, with Modi, it's gimmicks. Now you're not being fair.
Why? It is an eccentricity. He's not putting on turbans of different colors.
When he goes to
And-
Northeast, he wears that cap. When
Well,
he goes
naturally you
to,
will, but this chap
Kashmir,
is not going to the Northeast. He does it on a daily basis. And this peculiar thing of wearing colored kurtas that don't have sleeves. Look, the man is a load of gimmicks. He's a stand-up comedian. He's got great one-liners, but most of them are such boring repetitions to go on saying Mia Mia about Parvez Musharraf and go on saying Sahibzada about Rahul Gandhi. It doesn't bespeak a mature mind.
There is some people who, within the Congress who think that Congress party should distance itself from the government. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think it's a stupid idea that will never be able to work. The government is the governmental face of our party. The party is the party face of the government. The two are like Siamese twins. They are joined at the hip. We have to go together. We'll either, if we don't hang together, we're going to be hung separately. So there's no question of people, they can think up whatever scenario they want. And in desperation, desperate scenarios are thought up. But it is the job of the party to take forward the message of the government and the job of the government to undertake the mandate given to the government by the party.
Okay, on the last note, do you have a prediction for the new year, for the next year? What's it going to look like for the Congress?
I wish I could say that Manishankar Raya is going to be elected from Mailaduthurai, but there are big hurdles in the way, and I can only hope that since somebody told me that fate over the last 15 years has been determined by Jupiter swimming into my zodiacal sign, and that in 2013 it will start swimming out. I'm waiting to see which is the next planet that is going to enter my zodiacal sign. And if you know a good astrologer, please give me his name.
Well, we leave the last word with the irrepressible Manishankar Iyer. We wish you all a very happy new year, and to you too, sir, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.